Once we have the heading of our income statement, we're actually ready to fill in the bottom of the income statement. So the first thing I need you to write down is basically the first thing that we come across when we look at this worksheet. And I've cut it apart just a little so you can see just the income statement portion of the worksheet. So the very first thing I see is sales. But before I can write sales, I need to say what type of account this is. So I'm going to write the revenue heading as my very first thing. So I'm going to write revenue and put a colon there. Then I'm going to list any type of revenue account and amounts that I have. And in this case, I only have one revenue account, and that is sales. So I'm going to write that slightly indented. I'm going to write sales. And now I want us to take a look at how this income statement is divided. On the worksheet, it's divided in a debit and credit column. On the income statement, there is no heading there that says debit or credit. Instead, we're going to imagine this. The left column is individual amounts, and the right column is going to be total amounts. Now, in this case, we only have one revenue account. So rather than write the individual amount and then rewrite the total amount in both columns, we're going to skip writing it in the individual amount column and just place it into the total amount column, since all of our revenue is the total amount of sales. So I'm going to take the total sales amount, which if I look on my worksheet is $3,565, and I'm going to copy that over to the total column here, $3,565. I'm done with my revenue types. So the next thing I have are all expenses. So I'm going to put the expense heading on my income statement. So I'm going to write expenses with a colon, and then I'm going to list out every single expense account and the amount. So the first expense account I see is advertising expense. So I'm going to copy that over, indented slightly. And then because I have multiple expenses, I'm going to list each one individually in the individual column. So advertising expenses individual amount was $213, so I'm going to place it individually, 2013. The next thing I have is insurance expense. So I'm going to write insurance expense. That individual amount in the individual column, 100, 100. Miscellaneous expense. I'm going to take the individual 28, put it individually 28. Rent expense, 300 to 300. Supplies expense, 715 to 715. Utilities expense, 110 to 110. I have multiple expenses, so I'm actually going to do one more thing here, and I'm going to write total expenses, and this will be still right underneath all of my expense accounts. So I'm going to write total expenses, and then I'm going to total up all of these numbers in the individual column. Now I could re-add these again if I wanted to with the calculator, or I could realize that I've already added the total expense column on the worksheet, and it's this 1466 number right here. So I can just copy that over, and because it's a total, I need to put it in the total column, which is the right column. So 1466 is my total. I'm going to put it in the right or the total column, 1466. Okay? If I look back at my worksheet, the only number that I don't have accounted for yet is my net income. So you would put your net income or your net loss next. In this case, we have a net income, so I'd write net income. And then again, this doesn't have individual amounts, it just has one total net income amount. So I'm going to take that total of $2,099 for my net income and put it in the total column, which is the right column. I'm going to write that $2,099. If I had had a net loss, it would look the same. I'm just going to show you down here. I would write net loss because that's what I had. And again, I would take that number, whatever my net loss was, and it's a total, so I'd put it in the right-hand column, except this time I would put it in parentheses because in accounting, negative numbers are shown in parentheses. So it's still placed in the same exact spot as it would be if it was an income. The only difference is I would put it in parentheses and I would use the word loss instead of income. If you finish listing out the revenue heading, the types of revenue, the expense heading, the types of expense accounts, all the amounts, and then if you have multiple expense accounts, you have to do that total expenses, and then you have your net income or net loss. If you've done all of that, the last thing you just have to do is make sure you've ruled. And you can see that's already done in this income statement for you. There's a single rule underneath all of the single advertising expense individual ones because we totaled that. And then there's a single ruled line underneath total expense because technically I'm doing my math in this straight line of 3,565 minus my expenses, 1,466 means I would have a net income of 2,099. So this is just a straight math problem down here on the right. And if those expenses plus that income equaled the sales, I would double rule it to show that I'm right.